What's up, John?
What's up, man?
How you doing, Doc? Looks like we're live and direct. Are we on Just Cause?
Yeah, we're on.
Or are we on John's?
We're on Just Cause.
On Just Cause. Biddy bang.
How's that sound coming through?
Check.
Good.
I slapped the table.
All right.
I don't hear John.
So
Yeah,
today
so-
we have a special guest. I mean, we have a special guest
Every week when
every
because
week,
I'm here.
Everybody's special.
Yeah.
Everybody's special with Just Cause. We have Ash Stevens. Mm-hmm. Right.
Stevens. What's up,
This
Ash?
is Ash.
I know. Everybody's like Ash. Everybody knows Ash too.
And then most people mess up the last name because it's a PH, so they're like Stefan.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
Yeah, man. So
Wait, are you a fan of Pokemon?
I was a fan of the video games, but that's as far as I went.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Ash.
No,
You
it's
don't
not
have some
connected
sort
to
of, like-
Pokemon.
oh, I was like, what are you talking?
I'm
What
not
is that?
catching. I'm not to catch them all or anything.
Oh,
Trying not
okay.
to catch anything right now. That's
Yeah.
Right, everybody trying not to catch something right now, but stop with the madness. So we don't got nothing to talk about, man.
Yeah. So we're probably just gonna kind of hang out today and
Nah,
people.
just
No, we
sit
wanted
here.
to talk about Ash. Well, we didn't want to talk about Ash.
Right,
I mean, we do that anyway.
we do.
We wanted to talk to Ash because, like, because Jill
Gabler's
she will not let
motherfucking
this
ass, yo.
issue
Oh
die,
my
so we
God.
can't let it die. And Ash is actually a trans athlete.
Right,
Yeah.
who she's talking about. So yeah, here we go.
Right here in the city.
I wanna.
Oh,
Sorry.
set me up. So, yeah, I identify as non-binary, so I don't identify with gender, which is a completely, like, weird area in athletics, because athletics is, like, the most binary place, it feels like, on
Right,
the planet.
yeah.
Like, you don't really have much of a choice. You're either male or female, and that's it. Where, I mean, we're still fighting over, like, if trans women can compete. So, I mean,
Right.
they haven't even gotten to me yet,
Right,
so
right.
that's my main concern. But
Yeah.
it feels like over the last couple, well, I kind of know why it's happening. Over the last couple months, there's a lot of anti-trans bills coming out.
Yeah.
There's a lot of just, I guess after the last election, they're trying to find something to campaign on,
Yeah,
and they
totally.
basically think, hey, everyone hates trans people. Why don't we just campaign against them? It's kind of like the easy target. It was the same thing like with marriage equality back in the day where gay
Right.
marriage was the thing. You know, Bush campaigned against that. It's like, oh, we need to protect traditional families. So it's the same thing. It's just ratcheted up.
Right.
And it's unfortunate that Jill Gabler, well, I don't know if anyone's, I mean, I know you had Heidi on, so you've kind of talked about this.
Yeah.
But basically a week or so ago, Jill Gabler posted some transphobic tweets, multiple transphobic tweets.
Yeah.
And then Inside Out actually wrote an open letter about it, which is how I found out. Because at first I saw, like, city council member makes transphobic tweets. It's like, yeah, and everyone else nowadays, you know, I don't have time for this.
Right.
Like, because, I mean, I'm working and stuff, so I was like, I'll read it later.
Yeah.
And then Inside Out released their letter, and I read the letter, and I was like, oh, okay. It's like Jill Gabler, so I looked up the tweets, and I was like, oh. Because it's basically the whole thing is like we have to protect biological women from,
Right.
you know, trans
We gotta
women. They're
protect real women
yeah.
from.
Yeah,
They're gonna
them
sneak in our
taking
bathrooms
over.
and assault us. They're coming in our sports and taking over and all
Right,
this
right.
stuff. And
Right.
it wasn't even just tweets. She posted articles. I didn't have time to read the articles, so
Yeah.
it's like and she doubled down after.
did,
Yes.
exactly.
Like
After-
people are telling her like, hey, a little bit out of tone here, you know,
Yeah,
calm
yeah.
down a little bit. And
'Cause
she's like, nah, here's another one for you. Shoot
Someone,
off.
so I was
Trump style.
contacted after Inside Out's letter. It's like, hey, do you want to talk about this? And I was still kind of trying to catch myself up. And I was like, sure. And I'm not sure. I didn't see the news story. But I told her, like, maybe we should give her grace because I don't know. Because I feel like it's kind of a confusing area because people don't know, like, about trans people. It's kind of, it's not new, but it's new, like, in the public space. And you see these arguments, like, well, maybe she just picked up the argument and, you know, she doesn't quite understand.
Right.
If we sit down and, like, have a talk with her, you know, or somebody, it'll be okay. But then she doubled down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she tripled down.
And, and I was like,
She's
okay.
like, no, I know exactly what I'm talking about here. Yeah.
So, and it's, it's problematic for multiple reasons. First of all, by saying, oh, we have to protect biological women from trans women, you're kind of insinuating that, well, first, trans women are not women, which is a bunch of like mess. I'm trying not to cuss.
No, you can cuss.
Oh, hell.
You can cuss. All 4 letter words are welcome.
That'll
It's
be our
just-
next topic.
It's an on.
How many cuss words can we say?
I cuss so much, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, no,
I
that
try
means you're
not
honest.
to.
I like people that cuss a lot. It's just something about it, like it makes me feel like you're not lying to me.
That's actually who we're gonna have on.
Yeah.
But basically, you're insinuating that trans women aren't women, which is wrong.
Yeah.
And you're also insinuating that all trans people are just like, trying to assault people.
Right.
Like they're just trying to find any way to just attack women, and that's absolutely ridiculous.
You're right. The whole bathroom thing. What was that, like 4 years ago or something? They're like, oh, but like all those bathroom bills. I don't think I've read one instance of a trans person assaulting a woman or a child in a bathroom, right? But that was their whole big, like scary boogeyman that they're throwing out, and now it's like women's sports.
The thing is, it's like most likely it's the trans person getting assaulted in the bathroom.
Exactly.
Because you're just trying to go in there and do your business. You're not trying to, like
Cop a peep.
look at it like anything. You're literally like, I need to go to the bathroom. There's the stall. Let me go.
Right. Leave me
And
be.
then there are people sitting there looking at you like, oh, are you in the right bathroom? Well, if they're trying to be weird, they're being weird about, they're not trying to be confrontational. And then there are other people just look under your stalls like, are you supposed to be in here? Or look like just harassing. Like
That's
some
crazy, man.
trans people have been attacked. So it's the other way around, which is it's infuriating. And sorry, I'm like
No,
thoughts.
you're right. So I think that so from a perspective of somebody that aims to be an ally, right, in this whole thing, and like find a way to eradicate all of this bigotry that's happening around it. When I see people that I got friends, they'll post stuff like was it Mississippi? I think it was Mississippi just passed a bill completely banning trans people from all sports.
Yes.
They can't even play sports here. And it's not the only, I think Idaho, North Dakota is the 2 other states.
There's a whole bunch of them, and unfortunately,
I think it's 6
they're
altogether.
going to pass because they are controlled by the conservatives. There's just no way around it, which is very disappointing.
It's just like, I can't believe that y'all don't see this shit.
How are they going to enforce that?
Well,
Like,
that's the other thing. The only way,
because there's always going to be opposition to it. There's always going to be a parent that's like, no.
well, the thing, this is
That's a
also
girl or
problematic
whatever.
because people have an idea, like this idea, like I know what a trans person looks like, and like if you don't fit this like society's expectations of what a man and a woman's supposed to look like, they're just going to assume that you're trans, even though some people aren't trans. They're just like, oh, I look more masculine, I look more feminine, like this, and that's all it is. But they're just going to start profiling people is what it's going to be.
Exactly.
So if you're a more masculine leaning woman, not even trans, and you walk into the bathroom, all of a sudden now they're looking at you.
Yeah.
And either they're going to off the bat just try to kick you out the bathroom, or I don't know, they're going to have like somebody like check your genitals.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't,
yeah.
like there's, I don't, it's
Like, no, I'm saying yes, I believe they will actually do that.
I think they're.
Or
Yeah,
I'm
like
curious.
there's places in America that'll happen. Like as we're talking here, like it's just crazy to me. Like black folks don't like this, and I get it. You know what I'm saying? When there's a comparison made with this conversation, but though, if you want to figure out what's gonna happen next, just look at the past. Look at the history of how they did black folks in the restrooms with all of this shit that happens. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we know is going to happen in
some
America.
people are already arguing, well, they should just have separate spaces, separate bathrooms, and separate sports, and it's a separate but equal. And yes, we all know how that
goes
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
because it's not like, okay, let's separate all these things, but what the conditions going to look like? We've all seen the photo of like the water fountain, the white
ain't
water
nobody
fountain
doing that,
up
man.
here.
Fuck all that.
It
Hell
looks
no.
nice.
Like so
Yeah.
where I do agree, and I think I agree right now with knowing where my knowledge base is right now and the things that I know. I feel like in combat sports, that might be the only place where it's like, okay, hey, let's make some separation and do whatever it is here. You know what I'm saying? Where and really when it's for the trans man or trans woman, you know what I'm saying, in women's sports. I don't. So other than that, and I'm talking about like boxing and MMA. You know what I'm saying? Like combat sports. I don't know.
Right now, this is all so like this is new. Is like we've never really done this, and I'm probably gonna piss a lot of people off. They're gonna be mad at me, but
go for it.
I mean, there's science and stuff behind it, but right now we really don't know. Like everyone's saying I have this study and that study, and we have all the answers. We don't have all the answers with the trans athlete question. It's hard.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, you should just let trans I mean, personally, my belief, I don't care. I mean, I'm non-binary, so I'm biased.
You don't,
But even before because I haven't identified as non-binary for that long. So even before then, I would have been fine with it. I never cared.
Yeah.
Because to me, competition's competition. I could really care less
Right.
about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I just think a lot of these policies haven't even been around for more than 10 years, 20 years. We haven't had a lot of trans athletes, mainly because they're probably getting harassed to the point where they don't even want to do
have
it.
a chance to do it, yeah.
Or, there could be a lot of trans athletes and we don't know about
Right,
it, and they're not like... There's just this idea that, as soon as we allow trans athletes in, that they're just going to take over and take all the records and all this stuff. But the Olympics, like Heidi mentioned, I would suggest that you go back and watch that interview because
go back and watch that
great.
episode.
It was
a lot of that was covered. But like Olympics have allowed, at least since the early 2000s, allowed trans athletes, and there are a lot of rules. I'm not sure if Heidi went into that. So first of all, you can't just decide one day, hey, as a man, it's like, oh, I'm going to be trans and get into competitions as a woman. That's absolutely not how it works. You have to physically start transitioning. Go through the legal process, go through therapy, which costs a lot of money. They have to say you have just gender dysphoria, and then you can get your hormones. And you have to be on the hormones for a certain amount of time. I feel like it's a year or 2 years. So it's not like you can just, I started taking my hormones today, let me jump into competition.
Right.
You have to take the hormones so long that when they test your testosterone, because you do have to get that tested, it falls within a certain level. And once that happens, then you can compete. So it's just not a streamlined, I'm changing my gender today and I'm entering competition. So there's strict rules around it. Just for being an athlete, there's strict rules around everything.
Right.
Like
That's a good point.
I have ADHD. In order for me to take my meds, I have to go to the doctor. They have to say I have ADHD.
Right.
I have to go to the person give me the prescription, write all these notes.
Right.
I have to send it in to USADA, which is like United States Drug Administration.
Yeah.
And then they tell me I have to get a therapeutic exemption use. I don't know the exact term. And basically, I send all this information to them, and then they come back and tell me whether I can take it or not in competition. Like, period. And I've been denied. I've done that, and they're like, oh, no, you didn't have enough information, denied.
Oh, wow. And for your ADHD?
For ADHD,
wow.
just for that.
So they tell you, no, you can't eat that.
So if you're like a trans athlete, there's so many requirements just for you to do that no one's just doing it.
Right. Yeah.
To come out and win it.
Those who are trans, how many? We don't know that many Olympians. There's one. There's one Olympian.
Right.
So this whole idea, we're gonna take over sports and have all the records is ridiculous. This whole thing is ridiculous. So I'm going.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with you. And there are people like I had when maybe 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month ago now. One of my friends, he was like, no, yeah, I do see that happen. I do see a guy, a mediocre athlete, saying, transitioning to go play basketball, if he could make it in the WNBA.
Right.
And I'm just like, no, ain't nobody gonna do all of that,
and
man.
I guess too, it's
these things we're talking about, they are not like I can do this today and go back tomorrow.
Right.
Once you start to transition, there are a lot of things that you can never go back.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just especially if you're assigned female at birth and you transition to a male, there's a lot of things. Once you start taking testosterone, it's a wrap. Your voice changes, a whole bunch of structural things changes. Some people try to detransition, but you can still kind of see some of the stuff that happened during transition.
Yeah.
So this is not whatever, I can just train,
Right. It's life altering and
exactly.
really a real commitment.
Someone who's transitioned, that's not I just decide to do it.
Right.
That's not what happens. There's something about their gender that they don't like, or with the current gender they're assigned, and they decide to transition, and they want the activities they're in to match up with that. That's all it
That's
is.
it. Yeah,
I
I
can
agree,
still
man.
like these same things. The thing that gets me too is I'm all, you know what? There's every system has a couple cheaters. Does that mean you like
Nobody they
destroy
can't
the
do
whole
it.
system or
Right.
whatever? You know what I'm
Well,
saying? Like
whole
I'm sure there
population.
might be a person out there who's like, I'm going to try this, and it's like. So you're going to tell all of these other people that they can't do. It's kind of
Right.
like with the welfare thing. People are like, but there's welfare cheats.
Right.
So like, what? We should abolish
So,
welfare?
yeah,
you know what I'm
can't-
saying?
nobody
Like,
can have it.
it's
It's like-
ridiculous.
And again, I'm not saying any of this is easy. This is all new territory.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I personally believe that trans athletes should be able to compete in the sport in the gender that they, that they transition to, that they identify with. That's
So do I.
me. And maybe the way that we have assigned sports is kind of arcane, and maybe we should rethink
right.
about
That's
doing it.
exactly.
We can do it by weight class. Because honestly, some sports, strength doesn't mean jack squat. You can be the strongest person there. It doesn't mean you're going to be good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You just, maybe you have a small advantage for like the beginning part of the sport when you're learning.
Right.
But once you get to a certain level,
It evens
it
out.
doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Like,
You're
it's
gonna
a
be
matter of
stuck.
how you train
That-
as an
that's
athlete
exactly,
and all that.
and I
So-
said this in Heidi's interview too, that like, as far as the professional and the Olympic level stuff, I understand the amateur, but that it's still like a professional thing, right? They'll figure it out. You know what I'm saying? It's already been figured out too. Like they said, 20 years in the making, this shit's already been being done. So it's already there. So I feel like the only reason why John and I feel like let's have this discussion is because people's perception and like the way that people around us act towards this population of folks or whatever around these things. So anyway, I say all that to say I believe that it's in the schools, in the the children's sports is where this thing becomes the issue. You know what I'm saying?
let's-
And all that.
Right, yeah, it
And
becomes the
let's-
American issue. So when you said the weight class or just by age or whatever,
Because
they
let's
have you.
look at when I was younger, I was on a co-ed team. They
Yeah, right.
didn't separate males when you're super young, elementary school age.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's no separation. When you get to like the age where they start separating things, the thing that might actually take care of that is just allowing younger folks to take the hormone blockers.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is the thing, because people are advocating, as soon as you hit puberty, things change and there's an
Yeah.
advantage. Like, well, we could prevent that if we just
Right.
give kids hormone blockers, those who feel like, that might want to transition but don't know yet. Just give them the hormone blockers so they have time to figure it out. And if they decide, hey, I'm actually not trans, I just, feel a different way, they come off of those and then they go through the puberty the normal way and they can compete in male athletics. Problem solved. And if they decide, hey, no, I really need to transition, then they can just start taking like estrogen, like all of that stuff,
And skip the puberty
and like go
part-
through
part.
a puberty that normally
Yeah.
a woman would go through, and then there's no advantage.
Right.
That all like most of
That
this
badly
stuff
comes out,
can
yeah.
actually be solved, but the people who are advocating to get rid of trans athletes are trying to get rid of that too.
Right.
So you get to the point where you're like, is this about that you actually care about women's athletics, which they don't.
No.
Exactly. Well,
They
this
don't
is the
care.
thing with Jill Gabler and her
Right.
crusade that she's going on with this, and I don't know. I honestly don't know if she's just misguided or if she is just completely sold on this transphobic no, there shouldn't be trans people. You know what I'm saying?
And that's because I would like to err on the side of, hey, maybe you just don't know. Usually when I see things, unless you're being blatantly transphobic or homophobic or anything, I'm just like, maybe you don't know. Maybe if someone talks to you, we can kind of change
Right.
your perception.
Of course, people have talked to her.
But yeah, and
I mean,
that's
they had
the thing
to
with
have. They
her.
had to
Yeah,
have.
yeah,
So at the point, the trans athlete issue, a lot of these issues is basically they don't want trans people to be a part of society.
Yeah.
And they don't want publicly a part of society. They don't want them to be in the closet or just make it
Right.
hard for
Right.
them to exist in the
Right.
first place.
Yeah.
Because being an athlete is a very public thing. Restrooms a very
Right,
public
right.
thing. She's talking about jails and prisons, which I don't even know. Yeah, her tweets we
Yeah.
should women's spaces in the jails and prisons and the athletes in the bathrooms and so it's they're just trying to make it so that trans people cannot exist.
public,
Period.
yeah.
In public, make it as hard as possible.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was in the Army for a long time, right? And happened to be serving when the "Don't Ask, Don't Tell" thing was repealed, right? And my whole career, I think I was probably like 15 years or something in by the time, maybe a little longer than that by the time that Obama did this. And man, I tell you, so it was just completely like, it was blatantly obvious how bad these folks were being oppressed because as soon as that shit stopped, I mean, the day that it stopped, you saw all, I mean, like, I thought maybe, or had no freaking clue, you know what I'm saying? There's this guy, and he's still in the Army right now, and I've talked to him about telling this story. I've never told it in public, but I was just thinking about it as Ash was saying, we don't know how many trans athletes there are because they probably don't even want to deal with this shit, you know what I'm saying?
No, and there are some sports, because, like, I bring up, like, powerlifting. Powerlifting is not an Olympic sport. That's, for those who don't know, powerlifting's like the bench press, squats, deadlifts. There were trans athletes. There was a trans athlete, trans woman who was competing, and because of that, they actually went and banned them from competing after the fact. So she was already competing, everything was cool. Like, oh, you know, we don't like you, and we're banning you. So there are people, sports that aren't Olympic sports, they don't have protections really, because the OIC, the International Olympic Committee, they control who gets to compete and who doesn't. And they've said, hey, trans athletes can compete. Here are the rules. But for sports that, don't have that protection, if you come out as trans, they might ban you. They might say, hey, you're not allowed to compete. And it's not cheap. Being an athlete, it's definitely not cheap. It costs a lot of money. I probably should have started with this. For those of you who do not know, I participate in Olympic-style weightlifting, which is an Olympic sport. It's the snatch and clean and jerk. I've been an athlete since I was like 14, 15, because I used to be in track and field. I was a thrower, went to college in it, switched to weightlifting, so like how I know all this stuff, most of the stuff, because I am an athlete currently, not currently, I'm injured.
Yeah, I saw your post, hurt your shoulder.
I'm injured.
That's the problem with being an athlete.
That's one of the
you
problems.
hurt yourself.
But like, there's just, in some sports there are no protections for trans athletes. Like if you come out, the sport just might say, hey, you can't compete and ban you, and you spent like years and years and years competing and like trying to get to a certain level, and then just because you share a part of your identity that doesn't really affect anything, they're like, oh no, you're done, and they'll kick you out. And not just on the official level, but then you have to all of your teammates, all of that kind of aspect of socially, like you can come out and you're on a team, you have to deal with all of that. Or if like my sport's a little bit more individual, but like when you compete with other people, they're going to start saying things and accusing you of things, of cheating, of like, oh, you must be on testosterone. Oh, let's call you SADA on you. Let's call these people to try to get you disqualified.
Right.
So, I mean, some people, they're just not going to come out. I mean, why would you? Like when people are really states are passing bills right now trying to get you banned, why would you come out in this environment?
So. Yeah, you're right. And so, when they did drop that ban, everybody, they all came out, and there's this guy I was going to talk about, Daniels. So he, right now he's still in the military, and man, I swear to God, like you could just tell that he was gay or whatnot. Just by his mannerisms, and he would probably tell folks before it got done. Like he was just like, man, whatever, fuck, I don't, whatever. But the dude came out, high heels, shorts on, and went to the motherfucking club, man. Like through the gate with his shit cracking. I'm like, man. So I was like, oh, that's the shit. Like he was happy as fuck.
I love when people do that, when they finally can come out. I was like, I'm gonna do what I want, and then it's like, woo.
Yeah, and just put it all the way. And it was just like, so. And I was sitting at the CQ. I had you got to watch the desk for 24 hours straight. There's always somebody there, right? So this duty you got to pull. So anyway, I was on this duty, and there were soldiers that was on duty with me, right? And they were like about to start talking shit, and I got them. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the thing I'm talking about right here. With this stuff. So anyway, we have no clue really what there is and what we're like holding people back from, and that great athletes that we probably aren't getting a chance to witness.
Totally.
You know what I'm saying?
And I don't think people realize, and just in general about, well, some people say, oh, why do you have to tell everyone? Why does everyone need to know? maybe like in these spaces you could just keep it to yourself, you could just suppress it, and I don't think people realize how much damage like internally that causes, like mentally. Because like I was closeted, I'm not sure how because I was queer as hell, but I was closeted up until like the day before my 31st birthday is when I came out, and I'm like 34, so it's only been a couple of years, and it just sits at the back of your mind when you're closeted, when you can't like express yourself. You're always paranoid. What am I doing that's going to expose me that people are going to think that I'm queer? Like especially in the military, because you have to think, before Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed, if people thought you were queer or gay, you're fired. And people who are like maybe like 10 years, 15 years, like almost to retirement, if they found out, they just kicked you out. And that's like your livelihood. That's like how you're going to pay your bills, take care of your family, because some people, that's what it is. So, I mean, and it's just stuff like that. So you're always policing yourself all of the time. I can't say these things. I can't talk about my family. I can't, tell people what type of shows I like, because that might determine whether you're queer. I mean, just like, there's just so many things that you have to constantly, like, just looking around. Am I walking a certain way? Am I talking a certain way? People are looking at you. It's like, do they know that I'm queer? So, like, having people suppress that all the time, is very toxic. It's mentally, it's like, there's a reason why the suicide rate amongst the LGBT community, especially those who are closeted, is super high, because you have to deal with all that stuff. So like in the military, like when that ban was like lifted, people are like, oh my God, I get to talk about my husband that I technically got married to like 10 years ago, but I've never been able to talk about, because people take for granted, like straight people, cisgender people take like for granted that you can go and you can talk about your spouse all the time, and it's like no one cares. You can talk about your kids, all the stuff that you're doing in your family life, and it's just like normal. But if you're like queer and you're closeted, or being forced to be closeted because of your job, you can never talk about it. So all these people, like everyone else, is kind of making connections and like social connections and stuff, and you can't have that. There's always a feeling of otherness. It's like, I can never talk about this stuff, because if I say something, how are they going to react? Because most people, they might not care, but you might say that to someone who's a bigot. And now you got to work around this person all the time.
And it's like when you're doing that stuff to people, you don't want to like, it fucks your business up. You know what I'm saying? Like, what would make you want to have somebody with that mental on them working at your place? You know what I'm saying? It like obviously not getting the most of what you're paying for, or what you could be doing, or whatever. It just doesn't make any damn sense to do it.
The military, it's like, if you're constantly focusing on like hiding your like who you are, what are you not focusing about? Are you focusing on your job, which is like protecting the country?
No, of course. That's when I saw it, you know what I'm saying? I've seen soldiers, when I joined the Army in '98, and there were soldiers that used it to get out the Army that wasn't gay. They was like, hey, I'm gay, out of there, you know what I'm saying? Or like soldiers, like they think they're gay and they're watching these two like female soldiers or whatever, and questioning what they're like, really investigating what they're doing. It was really nuts,
and some people,
crazy
guess
shit.
what? Some people that you might think are queer or gay are actually not. So you might be kicking someone out who has so much experience, and they're not queer at all. This is all just
that definitely had to have happened many times. But though. So let's move. We got a couple more things.
You wanted to, because
what are we doing?
We're doing action, right? I mean, we can't just let Jill Gabler said. I mean, I know Inside Out sent a letter, but
so Inside Out sent a letter.
Something else is planned.
And Jill Gabler did. Not only did she not answer back, like to the letter, she just reposted the transphobic tweet, and right now, I'm pretty sure, I looked yesterday, because I look every once in a while. It's not like she's deleted the tweets. It's not like, it's like, oh, I posted this, people are saying stuff and I backed off. No, they're still there. You can look at them, go to Jill Gabler's Twitter. It's easy to find. Just type it, and that's what I did.
So, there's people that's like, oh, she's getting ready to go. It don't make sense. What are your thoughts on that?
She might not be getting ready to go. What I'm hearing is she might run for something else. She's term living it out of city council.
Right.
She's not term limited out on anything else.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I did
All
like,
right.
so when I Facebook, I was like, hey, she's going to be out of there. So, thank God. But then I was like, somebody mentioned to me, is like, no, she can run for something else.
Right.
There are plenty of things she can
Not
run
going to
for.
win, but
Of course not. And there's people that's watching her, and they need to see her get her ass whooped right now. You know what I'm saying? This whole time,
exactly.
like they need to see her getting beat the hell up about this, so that they just keep their bigoted like they're supposed to do. Just keep that shit to yourself.
And that's the
until
thing.
we
If you
find it.
allow,
you know what I'm saying?
if you allow
I don't know
comments,
if I like. Maybe I don't like bigots not speaking their opinion.
Right,
though.
yeah.
So anyway.
like, well, to me, usually, like, if you're a private citizen and you have some bigoted thoughts, I'm like, okay, screw you.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to talk to you.
Yeah.
Right.
Whatever.
Exactly.
But she's a public official. She's in
Right.
city council.
Yeah,
She represents.
bump
that. Yep.
She probably represents some trans and non-binary
Right. No,
people.
they don't
gender
probably.
non-conforming
Confident she
people.
does.
She
Yeah.
does.
And now
exactly.
you're watching your representatives
Yeah,
tell you that
exactly.
you shouldn't have rights. That's
Yeah.
very problematic.
So what's your
They're
answer
not-
to him? What are you telling Nate? What
Well-
we gonna do about it?
My thing is, my main concern is, well, Jill Gabler, obviously, but city council as a whole, I haven't seen anything. And maybe it's just because I'm not looking closely enough, but as of right now, no one else on city council has answered to that and say, hey, this is not what we believe, or this is what we believe either
Yeah.
way. So what I did is I put up an event on Facebook, keep Carl Springs inclusive. And what I want to do is on Tuesday, March 9th, and let me make sure I get all these details right, at 10 a.m. is the next city council meeting. So I just kind of wanted people to say, hey, if you are concerned about this, if this is something that really bothered you or you're an ally, this is the next city council meeting. You can call in, you can write an email. There's many ways you can participate. Talk to city council and let them know that this is not acceptable. Because if no one says anything, and I don't want to say no one said anything because Inside Out released a letter. Yeah. There's a trans veteran who actually talked to some friend of city council. I have to go and find the video because I didn't have time to watch.
That. Yeah, I didn't.
So there has been a little bit of pushback, but if it was only like Inside Out and one other person,
and Just Cause talking shit
Just
for
Cause.
weeks.
Yes.
And then they're like killing her on her feed. You know what I'm saying?
So basically, there has to be a massive pushback
Right.
because if there's only like so much pushback, but then she has supporters too. There are people going on the Twitter like, oh yes, protect women, yes, this trans agenda, we need to defeat this. So if they don't see any real pushback, they're going to think that this is something that's acceptable. Right. Some of them might think this is something that they can run on because this is this is the next cultural war thing that people are planning on.
I have a feeling you're right. In Colorado Springs, I mean, Jill Gabler is just the only one that's
open
public about this right now, but I have a
man,
feeling she's not the only one out there. And
that'd be
Jill
great.
Gabler,
I'd love it.
I mean,
that'd be great.
I have a feeling the agenda's not really about protecting women.
Oh no.
Especially for many of the, I don't want to call people out, but
it's like we live.
Certain city councilors, I assume, are probably right there behind Jill Gabler.
Yeah, it's like let's not kid ourselves. Colorado Springs is still conservative, super conservative. It's gotten a little bit better.
Yeah, that's what I just thought about. Like, we need Colorado Springs. There's a Trump candidate somewhere in there.
Oh,
the guy
definitely.
that's gonna try it and
didn't
have me for I'm a Trump eggs. Oh my God.
I would say let's
like
say Trump.
that person will not get to speak here anywhere. I'm just saying that. Like,
will not hold a position of power.
That will not happen.
This is a Trump area. I went by the World Arena when Trump was down here for the rally and how packed that was.
I know.
This is not like one or two people that believe in this stuff. This is like a massive.
I was like,
so I think it's important to just show us like, hey, you do have a trans community here. You have people who actually care about this issue, and there needs to be a pushback. And you can't just say these things and not face. Now, I'm not sure if there's any consequences, but I was talking to someone and I was like, I just want it on the table. Now, at this point, I just want your opinions on the table. Do you support trans people having access to public accommodations or do you not? Mainly from City Council, which is what I'm asking for on Tuesday.
Yeah.
If you're interested.
Tuesday, March 9th, everybody.
Tuesday, March 9th.
The meeting.
The meeting is going to be online because of COVID. So, like, I'm going to be asking questions. A couple of people have, like, signed up. And we're just going to be calling in and say, hey, what's the deal? What's your position? I'm specifically going to ask City Council in general, like, how do you feel about public accommodations for trans people? Do you believe this? Because you are City Council. You make some of the rules. I mean, Colorado in general is a more progressive state when it comes to trans rights and LGBTQ rights. But that doesn't mean as a city they won't try some mess.
Right.
So I just want it on the record. Jill Gabler's being loud, but that doesn't mean she's the only one. If I ask them that and they're like, oh no, we don't believe, in accommodations, or we believe there should be limits, it's like, okay, that's your position, but at least you said something.
Yeah.
Right now, no one's saying anything, and that bothers me. I don't want to be actively supporting a politician if I know you're against my rights and the rights of trans people. I'm just not going to do it.
It's not happening.
So I want to force them to have to address
I agree, and I
this.
think like Yolanda Avila, she did just Avila. God, she did just do an op-ed that I didn't read all the way through. I think she talked about it, but
okay, so I need to read that.
Yeah, she did. She just released one, and she tagged me on social media. My social media is blocked, so it was hard.
So
for
I
me.
don't think
So
I
anyway.
follow her, or maybe I don't see her stuff. I mean, because I can read, because if they have come out and said something about it, then cool.
Yeah, they
that's
need to.
great.
And so
Yeah,
and if she
exactly.
hasn't, I think that this is the time where you got to go ahead and
Yolanda, where you at?
and Scorman.
Scorman?
Yeah, and
come on.
And Bill Murray, Bill Murray would get on there talking shit. You know what I'm saying?
And all the candidates. Where are you guys out
the
on this
other
too?
candidates. He'll talk shit about people on the board out in there. You
So-
know what I'm
it's
saying?
funny, actually.
Basically, what I'm
get it
asking
done.
for is on the 9th, because it's just the next meeting. It's not the only time you can do it. You can do it whenever
Right.
you can. It's just,
All
I was
right.
like, as a rallying point, it's like, hey, can we all just get together and push back against this en masse? So the main way is you have to send an email out. I put the details on Facebook saying you want to join the citizens discussion, and then you can tell them, hey, I want to talk about this specific topic, and
We'll
they'll
put that
give you
link.
3
Yeah,
minutes.
we'll put the link.
We'll put that link in
They'll
the
give you
comments
3
on it.
minutes to talk. You can do that way. We're also having an event right outside of City Hall, and we're trying to turn this event into something a little bit more positive. So while we're trying to making the phone calls and addressing City Council, we're going to have kind of a donation collection type of event where it's if you have clothes or just food, non-perishables, you can bring them by, and we'll try to support the community that way for anyone who's struggling, because COVID's really messed up people's finances. And a lot of people need food, they need clothing, they might just need some help. So we're hey, if everyone's going to come here and protest, maybe you can bring something,
Right. Yeah, that's a
and
good
to
idea.
help the trans community, because especially since trans people
That should be
are
a common practice, I think.
Yeah, totally.
trans people are disproportionately among the homeless population,
Right.
especially trans kids, the most likely not to have jobs or to be let go. They
Mm-hmm.
are the essential workers, so if honestly, I'm not sure if the city council, by us going up there, they're going to necessarily be, oh yeah, let's change all our policies or how we think.
No.
This is more of just calling them out and say, hey, what's your position? You can't be
Right.
silent about it.
Yeah,
We're
Right,
not
yeah,
gonna
say
Yeah.
what you personally think about
But
this right here.
at least we can try to get some positive out of this, some type of action. So that's basically the plan.
Cool.
Sorry if I'm
Alright.
not explaining it too
No,
clear.
it was a good
that was
plan.
clear.
That was good.
really good. And,
10
we're
a.m. did
down
you
for
say?
all that.
10 a.m. did you
10
say?
a.m.
10 a.m.
And
People are going to
usually-
meet at City Hall?
They can.
Alright.
Well, you can meet at City Hall because it's still COVID, so it's understandable if you don't feel like it's safe. You can also just call in. There's you can call into the citizens discussion. I think you actually have to sign up. I'm not sure what the deadline on that was.
You might
So
be able to do it
too
up
late.
to it. I know when we had a call in action, people, I'm pretty sure were doing it
Yeah, I
that
was
day,
doing
like
it that
signing
day.
up
They
that.
hung up on
And
me
they have
3
a
times.
Microsoft meeting. I mean, I'm used to Zoom, so I'm
Yeah.
not sure. But they have a way that you can call in to the meeting through Microsoft, and they have a code, and I'll try to repost that. All of this information is also on the Colorado Springs website, the government website, where you can find all this
Right.
information. I'll make sure to share the meeting beforehand. I might be there earlier than 10 a.m. because I'm
Right.
paranoid and like to
Oh,
get set up.
yeah,
Right.
definitely.
Yeah,
So,
get
I mean,
it
there's
early.
You can use our loud ass PA too,
Yeah.
so they can hear
I
you
think I'll
inside.
be able to be there. For what day? What day is
That's a
that?
Tuesday.
Tuesday at 9.
And
I think I might
so
be able to be there.
mainly we
So-
just want people to be aware that this is happening, aware that Jill Gabler still has not. I mean, she's never going to apologize. At this point, when you triple down on something
Yeah,
like that,
yeah,
you're not
yeah.
going to apologize. But just kind of hold city council members accountable. And also, this is an election year. I should have mentioned
Yeah.
that too. The city council elections are happening. All the elections are happening this year. So if this is an issue that you feel that's important, if you're just an ally or if you're a trans person, this is the time where you need to kind of challenge some of these city council
Yep.
members. when they're-
Hermes.
Yes.
Hermes got all the little signs up talking about change the Citadel,
Right.
reinvent the Citadel. I think we need to hear what he has to say about
Yeah, that's
this.
right.
Yeah, and this is
Cheyenne
just
Mountain Man.
Because, like when the political season happens, there's always like questions that certain groups ask. Like if you go to NAACP, there's going to be there's going to be questions that they're going to ask that deal with like the Black community. Like every group has their, hey, we want you to answer these questions. LGBTQ community, needs to have that too. We need to be in these spaces and asking them these questions. Because if we don't, what happens is people like Jill Gabler get elected, and then after the fact, we find out that she's posting a bunch of transphobic stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
I think y'all should summon them to the Chinook Center and grill their ass.
Summon them? Like, do some sort of seance?
Bring your ass.
So basically, anytime you see a politician, if they're taking questions, I would just encourage you, if this is something that's important to you, just say, hey, how do you feel about like trans people in spaces of public accommodations? Yeah. And they might like, try to get out of it and kind of don't want to answer, which if they don't want to answer the question is also kind of an answer.
Yeah, exactly.
No, because they could just say, hey, I don't know enough about it, let me get back to you. And that's okay, I can, just coming out of the blue, but by now, people should kind of have an answer.
Be prepared, guys.
Be ready for that.
Wait, no, John, we're not going to sneak attack them. Actually, it's not a sneak attack now. We're telling all of them that that's like what you need to talk about.
It's just because, we just need to question them. There's just something that needs to be on the table, because what you don't want to do is, donate to people, start spending time advocating for them, all this stuff, and then they come out as transphobic, and then people are looking at you like, hey, you support this person, why did you support this person when that person is transphobic? Somebody told me, like, they're interviewing me, and they told me that Jill Gabler was like, oh, she was once a trans ally, and now she's not. And I'm like, well, I don't know who she is, but if somebody had questioned her earlier about these issues, then that might not have been the case. People would have known beforehand.
Right.
And I don't know if she would.
That doesn't even make sense. That sounds
she might have still
stupid
gotten elected.
That don't. But how does that? I'm gonna venture to say that never happened. Like, I used to support trans people, but now I think they're fucking sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
You never supported them. But though, so I want to kind of shift gears real quick, because I want to talk about this. We were talking about exactly like how. So I don't know if the news. I did see. I'm trying to think of which report. I don't want to mess their name. Anyway, I'm gonna mess it up. One of these reporters from News 5 talked about this in one of her little Facebook posts or whatever.
Really?
They had like a little conversation going, and then you made this controversial post yesterday, or
it wasn't too controversial, but
about NPR. You was dogging NPR, man.
I was dogging NPR,
and everybody's like, "Whoa!"
I'm sorry, liberals.
Whoa, buddy. What's your beef with NPR, man? Well, here. Tell me. You tell them your beef with NPR.
Well, and I think that Just Cause is pushing that back against us. But like, do you listen to NPR?
I actually don't listen to NPR.
Okay.
You're right.
I don't listen to NPR. It's not like I dislike NPR. I don't. I'm playing video games all the time. That's what I usually do in my private time. And I have a couple podcasts I listen to. But
I need to. The problem is, it's on in the car when I'm driving, and I've listened to NPR for since I was like 18 or something. I've been listening to it for a long time, and whatever I like.
At this shit, John. That's crazy.
I like their reporting just fine, but sometimes you're listening to them talk about these things where it's like people are robbing people of their rights, people are getting shot by police, kids are getting locked up in cages, and the NPR reporters, they're just like so sedate in their reporting, and they're blah blah blah, and there is kind of an air of like, I don't know, a degree of condescension or something, I guess.
Right.
And I just feel like that is sometimes part of the problem with like liberals especially, maybe not so much the left, is that like we want to focus so much on like the message. We're not thinking about how we're putting the message out there. We were actually just talking about this just before we started.
Yeah.
People are upset about issues, and I was saying, I think this is why Trump got elected. You get out there and you say, I feel your pain, like things are totally fucked up.
Right.
But NPR is never going to say like, there's this really fucked up situation going on at the border.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Like 10,000 people were murdered at the school in
and it feels just so like, how can you report on this without expressing any emotion? Like, we want to have good reporting, but like, there's a reason Fox News is so popular. And I guess maybe we should start a conversation about this. I think we need to pull people in by showing that like, look, it's okay to have emotion. Like, you can have emotions and still have fact-based journalism, right?
Yeah.
But that's like, when you watch Fox News, when you listen to Rush Limbaugh, I was going to say something about him dying, but I'll not.
Why not?
But that's why he got so popular, right? Because he gets people so like emotionally wrapped up in things, and like what he's spewing is complete and total BS.
Bullshit
But people are like feel so completely
for hours a day too, man.
Yeah, they feel like that emotional connection to it though, because
Right.
they're like, oh, I'm really upset about that too. Like, I think we need to do a better job of being like,
I agree,
yeah,
man.
I'm fucking pissed off and this shit's bullshit and we should talk about it in that way. You know what I'm saying?
I think that the news, like, you know, so even Les says, hey, that's the way that the news should be. You know, just straightforward, like no emotion, trying to sway people's thought
Same with
into
my
nothing.
mom.
That's, and I agree with it too, to an extent. You know what I'm saying? But I think that but I agree with it. I don't think that it needs to be this big flashy, the lady with the big boobs and the booty with the on the screen and shit. Like, I think all of that shit is bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like, but though, you said, we're kind of pushing back on that. You know what I'm saying? Like, the things that we talk about are like legitimate shit, and
Like
we're
some
like,
people-
fuck you.
yeah,
You
exactly.
know what
You
I'm
might
saying?
get worked up
so
about some
you're right,
issues.
and I think it's something that needs to be addressed, because people, like, I'm honestly, man, the young crowd, like, the fact that you listened to NPR when you was 18.
I mean, I
What
don't
the
know, maybe
fuck,
like,
dog?
maybe
I mean,
later,
I
don't
was-
know.
I
That's
was-
crazy to be.
I watched
Like, I was
C-SPAN
gonna
when I
say
was
it.
young too. Like, I would
it
get
was-
bored. I was like, oh, this looks interesting, and I would watch like hours of C-SPAN.
I mean,
Like,
that's even worse.
I'd be on my
I
like
thought it was 'cause you were
Nintendo
old.
DS or something. And it's like, oh well, let me play this while C-SPAN's playing in the background.
Oh man,
but I
that's-
guess they're
yeah, I don't know, I think it's good, and I'm glad that you're my friend, man, because I need friends like that. You know what I'm saying?
Still listen to NPR?
Yeah, since they were 8, I was
think-
listening to Biggie and shit. When
I
was
think
18.
I mean, I also listen to punk, and punk is like, raw, fucking shit, you know, and that's like,
Right.
it's like, wow, this is awesome,
yeah,
you know?
Yeah, you were like listening to
I think
things
we
of
can have
substance.
multiple
I was listening
things
to the
at
10
once.
crack commandments.
So
man.
I think people are treating this as it has to be one way or the other. Like, we have to have super passionate news and be like out like. We have to have that type of news, or we have to have straight news, like facts only stuff. It's like we can have both. There's enough space for everything.
Yeah, I think
'Cause
we need to have both.
there's
Like, we have to
sometimes
have
I don't like. I'm not like. I just want to know the facts. I
Right.
just want to know, like, I'm not looking for like opinions or anything like that, or just having passionate discussions. Like, I just want somebody to tell me straight up, this is what happened today.
Yeah.
That's it. And sometimes I miss that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just looking at the news real quick, saying, okay, there was a robbery here. You know, this bill passed,
Right.
that bill passed.
Right,
Just
right,
like
right.
straight news.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, I see this, you know, that news and it's good. And then I have certain people and certain spaces I go to for all the other stuff. So I'm kind of like a,
Right.
you know, like NPR, I don't go to NPR for super passionate stuff. I just know
Right,
that's not
yeah,
what
maybe
they
that's
do.
my problem.
Yeah, yeah.
My
Well, I mean, you know, you're right though. Like those stories are all of them have something in it.
Right.
You know
Well,
what I'm saying? But-
part of it is they have, and Amy Goodman. People are like, watch Amy Goodman, but Amy Goodman is even more boring. Sorry,
that's
Amy
so
Goodman.
bad.
And maybe they just
You
come
know,
from a
like-
time, because I feel like, you know, nowadays everyone's super passionate, and,
Right.
and especially
Yeah.
with social media, and everyone's like,
Right,
Yeah.
you know,
right. Yeah, that's true,
where
actually.
They came from an era where
Yeah.
everyone's just kind of like, stay in the middle of the road, don't try to look biased, because a lot of us probably just try not to look biased. one way
Right,
or
right,
the
right. But
other,
there is bias.
which is
I think-
kind of problematic too.
Well,
in
and
some
it comes
ways,
from
but-
capitalism. The bias comes from capitalism. Like we were just talking about including the city into some things that we were talking about doing
Oh,
this
right,
summer,
right,
right?
right.
And we were like, oh, but wait a minute. Nah, these motherfuckers gonna want us to do this or have police all over our shit. It's not
Right.
even gonna look like us. You know what I'm saying? So, like, when you're trying to compete with these big, huge dollars and whatever the trash news or whatever, they got to figure out a way. Hey, can you give me $2 million
Right.
to
Well-
run this production? Now you have to do the shit that they're talking
Right.
about.
Well, and they're
You know what I'm
deciding
saying?
which facts, and this is sometimes why I push back. Even back in college, there was a thing about like the election, and this reporter came on, and she's like, "Look, we're registered independents as journalists." I'm like, that doesn't mean you're unbiased. That just means you checked a little thing.
Yeah.
But it's also the fact that like the news decides what facts are important.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a ton of facts out there, but they kind of decided what things to follow.
Right,
That
and they'll
is
just
true.
completely ignore
Which
the other
is,
shit.
Yeah, exactly.
which is why it's important that you diversify your
Where you
news.
getting this
Right.
from?
If you're only getting your news from Fox or only getting your news from MSNBC, then you're probably messing up. Because everyone, news on the left, news on the right, everything has its bias. So you're not going to get completely unbiased news. So what you should do is get multiple
Diversity,
news
places,
places.
You know what happens with me a lot, man? And I'm lucky too, because I got a bunch of like active friends and people that pay attention to shit. I just flip down my timeline, dog. And like people post like the articles we was talking, the bill, all of this shit that just, they just passed the stimulus bill this morning, getting $1,400. Hopefully it comes tomorrow.
No.
Thank you so much, Joe Manchin.
Yeah, Joe Manchin.
Oh my, he is driving me crazy. I'm like,
Appreciate the dollars.
at this point, I'd rather, this might be problematic. At this point, I'd rather have a Republican, because at least I know where he stands, Republican stands. Joe
mean, you basically
Manchin
do
is
got
on
one.
some, I'm a Democrat, but so far to the right. It's like, what's the point?
Well, and I was talking about this. West Virginia is not exactly like a well-off state, and he's like, I don't know, we shouldn't be giving my constituents more
That's
money.
what drives me
that's
crazy.
crazy.
Like,
Come on.
It's like these people who make millions and millions and millions of dollars are trying to say, they don't need $1,400, or these people don't need it. You don't know my life.
Yeah, that's
Even
nuts
like,
to me,
and
man.
I'll be honest, like during the pandemic, I've been okay for the most part because my job, I'm just gonna say I have a government job. I'm not gonna say where I can't technically say because the Hatch Act, I'm just going to mention that, my opinions are my own, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But, I've had a job for most of the pandemic, but I still had things that came up that I needed the money for. Those last stimulus checks, I used it for my car, which is important because I have to get to work.
Right.
Like, I think
Especially here, because you can't take a bus anywhere.
There's no public transportation, you can't walk nowhere.
the first time, I bought tires. Tires are expensive.
Yeah.
The next
Right.
time I had,
Potholes fucking my shit up.
maintenance. So, I mean, just these people just deciding is just because you're not dirt poor, that you don't need $1,400.
Right.
Like, that's still money. That's.
I think they were talking about was the number 300,000 or something, or 250? If they make 250 joint together, then they were like.
Was that the numbers they decided on? Yeah, I don't.
That you were only going to get a $600 check or something
That
like that.
depends on where you live because.
And how many kids you have.
Because
and,
if you live in a space like Denver, that's not going to do anything.
Yeah. If you live in New York City, you got 4 kids.
It's going to
a lot of money
evaporate.
to live. Yeah.
It's going to be like, I went and bought groceries and I put gas in my car and I paid one bill off
$1,500.
and the money's
Yeah.
gone.
That's the whole check. Yeah, man. So anyway, send me my money. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I haven't received not one stimulus payment
You
yet.
what?
So I went through the tax thing. I'm hoping that it comes with my taxes.
Yeah, maybe you'll get it with your
So
taxes.
we'll see,
'Cause
man. But I ain't
Keep
got.
us updated
But
on the
though,
show.
for me, it's kind of like that's cool. So how much is it? Like 12. Then we got 6, 14.
Right, you'll get a big old lump sum.
get a nice little wop
they were
right
asking-
I
there.
can get some tires.
Yeah, and I get some pounds with it. No, I'm paying.
Yeah, because I remember when I did my taxes, they asked, did you get the stimulus checks? And I think they're trying to figure out, okay, you were supposed to get it and you didn't get it, so maybe they are just going to, attach it to a refund.
yeah.
Or
I
something.
also like that they're like,
don't
did
know.
you get it? Because we're not clear. We
Um,
can't keep track of this stuff. Like, we can't keep track of kids. We can't keep track of who's gotten stimulus checks.
Right, yeah.
I like the idea that we really think the U.S. government is some, massive, efficient, well-oiled machine, and yet
as
it's
someone
just...
who was
They just have so much
No.
money. They
Yeah,
can't even.
yeah. Well, there's conspiracy
mess.
theorists. I'm
It's
like,
a mess.
how
Some down.
conspiracy theorists that think the government is capable of all these things? I'm like, apparently you've
Yeah,
never
you don't
spent any
understand.
time around the government.
Well,
People
what
that
people don't realize is that the government is made of human beings, and human beings make mistakes.
Yeah.
They're
oppressed. They're not allowed to be themselves.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
some places might be underfunded, but just because it's the government doesn't mean that everyone's just awash in money,
Yeah.
because the money only goes to certain things.
Yeah.
there'd be
exactly.
soldiers when they were talking about the National Guard being spun up on January 6th for the insurrection or whatever, and they I forgot the numbers, but every day they added 6,000 soldiers or something like that, and I was like, man, just thinking about moving 6,000 soldiers
It takes a lot.
oh man, that's just that. You don't want to be no parts of that, bro.
Yeah.
That shit sucked for them dudes
Yeah,
and girls. That shit sucked, man. But did y'all watch Coming to America?
No,
I
I
haven't
didn't
watched
watch
it
it.
yet.
I've
Oh,
never
you know
watched
what?
the
We should
first
do
one.
Y'all didn't watch.
Wait, have you watched
I've never
Judas and the
seen
Black
the
Messiah?
first one.
I actually have
my
never seen it all the way
gosh.
through. I've only seen, but because it was just like one of those films that was around. So you're like, okay, I'll watch a little bit of
I'm
this.
not
but
a
I never
Yeah.
sat down
I am
and
not a
watched the
movie
whole
person.
thing.
I actually don't watch movies, rarely ever.
Yeah.
Like, so any of the big things that have ever come out, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen any of the Marvel stuff, none of the Coming to America stuff.
Man, you tripping,
I haven't
man.
seen none
You
of the,
gotta watch the
like,
TV.
was it the
You
Friday
run the game.
movies? I've never seen
Oh
Friday.
man,
Like,
that's amazing to me. That's
We
like
should have a
cultural
Friday
shit.
film showing at the Chinook Center.
You're missing
On
out on
Friday.
Some culture.
it's like I watch like random documentaries
Me too.
sometimes.
Well, yeah,
I
like-
love documentaries.
When I was younger, I guess when like Star Wars came out or like the Disney movie, I watched those. But when I got older, I just didn't care.
I watched Star Wars this
So-
last year.
Oh,
I
yeah,
I
that's
watched
right.
all of like every single
I
one
ju-
of them,
I
man.
don't.
I watched all of that. I watched all the Vikings. I watched all the white people shows except Friends.
I
Except
can't
Now you
Friends.
gotta watch Friends now.
I can't watch Friends anymore. I watched the first episode, and some things don't age well, especially when you start caring about certain issues. And like
Ugh.
Friends,
Yeah,
like
shit
the
in the
first
90s.
Is
episode,
it just gay jokes the whole
it's like
time?
the gay
Right.
jokes. It's like I'm just like, oh,
That's
you,
what-
you
when
try
you-
to understand. It's like at the time it was the '90s. That's how
Right.
it was, but still, so I'm
But
like,
people
I
were
can't.
gay in the 90s.
Right.
I
Yeah,
know.
getting clowned
But it's
on,
just-
getting oppressed.
yeah,
man.
that's the thing. It
Anyway,
was-
y'all keep listen. Y'all changing the subject, man. We're talking about
This
coming
checks,
to America.
getting- oh,
Well, we should all watch it. So I want to do a film review. Let's watch.
should.
You don't
We
have to
should.
watch it,
I-
Ash,
I-
but you can.
So,
We should-
as the fact that you didn't see it, some people are saying that you're not missing much. So I don't know. I'll let you be the judge.
Yeah, let's watch.
The
Also, I think we should do a film review of Judas and the Black Messiah.
Oh, okay. What
Next
do you mean?
show, like we can sit and talk about it.
Oh, yeah. I guess we didn't talk about it. Yeah, my
Yeah,
social
yeah.
media's been down, man. That's
That's
just
all
been
right.
not.
That's
on
what this is
point.
for.
I
Next-
know. I
next
this
time.
Should be my
I
social
realize that's why
media.
you've been quiet because I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, they got me blocked 2 months straight, man. 2 months.
And you might actually be better
It
off.
started off
'cause-
talking shit during the insurrection. I thought I was on there like, oh, we going to war. I thought it was going down that day, and they were like, no.
That's
you're
when
going-
they
you're
decide to
going
start-
Facebook jail. You're
It-
the one that's going down.
It
that
drives
day.
me crazy. That's when they decide to start banning people from social media.
Yeah.
Not when
Yeah,
everyone else
yeah.
was saying we're going to storm the Capitol or the
Yeah.
election's fake. None of that. Oh, that stuff's fine. Oh, we're going to go after Nancy Pelosi, which, however you think about it, they were threatening her.
Yeah.
They were threatening a lot of people for a long time on social media. But all of a sudden now it's like, oh no, we got to ban you for just saying, hey, we
Yeah, for talking
Yeah,
shit.
now it's like going across. A lot of like my left-wing friends, like they weren't able to do certain things on their accounts too. They were just like, "Nah, we're going to restrict your account for a bit because you're like, you have these sort of like." I don't want to use the term insurrectionist because it's like associated with right wingers, but people, like
Yeah, it
militants,
was-
like
yeah,
left wing
they
militants
ran-
were getting
overran
basically
the damn building,
taken
man.
over.
But anyway, yeah. So we should watch that. I think we should.
All right, I'll
do
watch
it.
Coming-
I mean,
Coming
well, I
to
mean, we should do
America.
the. You want to do the review? I want to watch it again. I watched it twice already since the day we did
Oh
it,
yeah,
like, the Chinook
I better
Center,
watch
yeah.
it again. Crap.
Yes, but anyway, yeah, let's do that, man. We'll talk
should
about it. A
watch
lot
it
of
too.
folks watch the
should
Black
watch a lot of
Messiah, and
things.
they kind
I
of like
don't-
Semi-documentarian.
The last thing I watched the documentary on Coachella because I didn't know anything about it. I thought it was really good. As
Oh,
someone
really?
who's
Okay.
never been or
I've
never
yeah.
watched it, I thought it was cool.
Is that
And
the
then
hippie festival?
That's the hippie. That's the hippie festival.
Right.
The rich kids who can afford the tickets.
The
And then-
Trustafarians, I
what
believe they're
else?
called.
And then I actually watched the Dave Chappelle special that everyone was pissed about. I did
Oh,
watch that one.
what'd you think of it? I
So-
like Dave
well,
Chappelle.
Somebody mentioned to me
Oh, the
because
special
the
he
one
did.
that was supposed to be transphobic and homophobic, and that's somebody said, "Hey, how do you feel about it?" It's like I've never seen it, so I don't know. I heard these things like, "Well, do you want to watch it?" And I'll show you the part that everyone's mad about. And I watched it, and I wasn't. People are going to be mad at me. You can cancel me. I don't care. I'll play video games.
You're like, I can just go back to the thing I
I
want
thought
to
the
do.
same thing. But myself, I was like, well, that's just because you don't live that shit. You don't understand it. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't see.
I wasn't offended.
I thought he was like telling how it is. I don't know. I thought it was.
I would
don't
I
know.
watched
I
it
would
and
just
like
not say nothing.
I wasn't offended the way because first of all there's context and people when you watch these films you always have to watch it for yourself to
Yeah.
get the context
Yeah.
because if you just go off of the Facebook post
Yes,
that has
exactly.
like the super inflammatory like
Yeah. Right.
like the
Line that he
headline
said,
yeah.
and that's all you read it's like
Yes,
oh well he's
exactly.
transphobic no you actually have to watch it.
I think Dave Chappelle is a comedic genius, personally.
Yeah.
Like the things that he puts together for his stand-up, I'm all, oh my god,
Yeah, and
no,
that's what I thought. It's
damn."
like if you actually watch it and watch how he sets it up, and then he
Yes.
actually makes a joke. It's like you know what? I'm not offended.
Yeah.
he's tapping on the line. He's definitely like stepping
as
on
purposefully,
it.
exactly. But I think he often does things as a sort of like he. And whatever, maybe I'm wrong here, but I feel like he's making fun of these issues by tapping on the line. You know what I'm saying?
He was making points though, like the entire time. I was like, "That's true. That's true about the community. That's also true about the community. All this stuff is true." I mean, yes, he did say the F word, and you know, that's kind of like
the N word too.
So it's to me, I'm just like,
that's so I guess he got paid. They made Comedy Central paid him for his the Chappelle show.
Oh, really? Okay.
Hey man, dog. I used to think that shit was funny, but even like now, I'm like when you talk about shit like the Friends, like this shit that you're just like, oh, bro, that shit is not funny.
See, I see I'm gonna be the horrible
like a
person.
piece of shit for doing that.
I'm gonna be the horrible person because some of that stuff I still think is
funny. I do
because
too. But I don't think it's for everybody to watch. I feel like. Like that shit, there's racists laughing at us. Like
that's where the thing is. It's like why? It's like more. It's like why are you laughing? I guess I can understand that because to me, if you understand the point he was trying to make, then it's funny because
if he can send all of the Chappelle to all the black people in the country, then I'd be like, all right, cool, let's laugh at that.
But yeah, I guess that. I'm a horrible person. I still laugh.
I don't like it, man. But so anyway, that has just been on.
But that was his whole
thing.
That's why he stopped. He's like, I don't think people are laughing at my jokes for the right reason here.
Yeah, he felt like a piece of shit for doing it. And I, like, good. You should have not. But I didn't want. I'm glad he came back. Like I thought. I'm glad he didn't.
But that was like the last two things I watched. Other than that, whatever's happening movies wise, I don't watch movies usually, so I don't know.
I mean, movies can be.
You gotta
very
watch Coming to America.
I mean, I've seen clips.
The 80s one, you might as well just skip it because it's all just making fun of African people. And it's like not. I mean, it's like Eddie Murphy. I don't call him that, but it's just Eddie Murphy.
Maybe my sense of humor is kind of messed up because, like, I can laugh at messed up things depending on what you're actually making fun of. If you're making fun of like the actual ideal that people think like this, then I can laugh at it.
That's what I got from Coming to America too.
Like you can
to America,
For some reason, people seem to be incapable of doing that anymore. It's like there is nuance to things like. If you're making a joke or there's jokes being made, but you're making fun of like people actually think this and it's stupid, we're laughing at the ideal that there are people like this that exist and that whole thought is stupid, as opposed to we're actually making fun of these people. We think these people are awful. Like example, if you make if someone's making I'm trying to think. Like black jokes. Like back in the day, people were making all sorts of jokes about black culture and stuff like that. Yeah. But we were making fun of we all know that this is kind of like
stereotypes of black culture.
We know these stereotypes are stupid, and we're laughing at the stereotype. Yeah. We're not laughing at actual black people who are like this. We're laughing there's like nuance.
This thing to it.
But people, I guess, are incapable of it or being disingenuous and we're laughing at one thing about how dumb the stereotype is. You're actually thinking that people are the stereotype and you're laughing at them. There's a difference.
Exactly,
So I think I could watch it and find it funny. And if it's like in the 80s, then you kind of like,
especially the barber scene. It just cuts clip to the barber scene with him and Arsenio's wearing the
I think the only thing I saw, I think that's the movie with like sexual chocolate or something.
I
saw that clip.
Sexual chocolate
and I thought that was funny.
So funny, that movie's, it's funny. I'm glad I'm not going to give it away because I was just about to talk about it, but they fixed a lot of it. In this,
that's what we were talking about.
That's the same, and I was like, I hope they don't keep that shit up. But anyway.
Thank you for coming along. That was a good conversation.
Yeah, that was good.
I
feel like I rarely get to talk to you, Ash, because you're always at home playing video.
I shoot Ash a message. We'll go back and forth on the inbox here and there.
Not entirely true, because I have a really messed up schedule for work. Because I technically have to go to work at 4 o'clock in the afternoon till midnight. So sometimes when I'm on Facebook, maybe I shouldn't say this. I don't think they're gonna watch.
Hey, it's all right. You work for the government.
We had dead time sometimes. There's like nothing to do.
Hurry up and wait. Yeah,
so I'm like, let me look on Facebook real quick, or I'm at lunch, and that's when I'm on Facebook. So
just say that. Just
I'm talking about stuff, but I'm actually busy.
Speaking of lunch, I'm hungry right now, dog. We should go eat.
Really
all right, man. Hey, we appreciate y'all. Ash, thank you so much. March 9th at 10
in
the morning, but we gonna be there at 9 though. So make sure that you get on the little link that they got. We'll put all of the stuff for the
I'll
meeting.
repost it.
Can
on
you send
Just
it to
Cause.
us? Can you just like?
I'll
Yeah,
send
so we
it.
don't
I'll
gotta
repost
find it. I
it.
mean, we can find, but all of the little things, we'll put it in there, and then we'll share it on Just Cause the day of.
Yep.
And I think, y'all know, John and I might be out there talking shit, man.
It's been a while, so
Right,
kinda
yeah,
like
it's getting that time, boy. It's warming up. It was nice this morning outside, too,
season.
man. Yeah, so anyway,
Yes,
all right,
sir.
guys, we appreciate it, man. We love y'all.
Thanks a lot. Peace,
All
everybody.
power, huh? Yeah.